In the book of Daniel, in chapter 7, we read of Daniel's vision. And it is this creepy, weird vision of animals with lots of heads, and it's disturbing, it's dystopian, it's freaky. And then in the midst of this description, Daniel looks up and he sees God sitting on his throne. And then it goes back to the horrors. Very strange. But we see something similar in the book of Revelation, where John is given a window into the throne room of God, one of the most exquisite chapters in the Bible. He describes the throne of God, and he describes God himself and all that's around him. And then from there, he goes on to see all manner of horrors. And it seems odd and it seems disjointed. Why are these books written in this way? It's a little like watching a scary movie, like maybe some thriller, and there's creepy music, and then suddenly it cuts into this very colorful, bright dance scene. Maybe dance scenes aren't your thing, but something happy and something beautiful and something good, and then back to the dark and gloomy, and it doesn't seem to fit. It seems jarring. So why is it like this? And I believe that it's incredibly intentional on God's part. God is not random. He's very, very, very particular. And the lifting of Daniel's eyes and the lifting of John's eyes to the throne of heaven is very purposeful, because it fortifies them for what's ahead. Now, we are living through a horrendous time. There is so much grief and fear and uncertainty, and it's a little like 2020, 2021 is a little like double maths on a Friday afternoon, just worse. It's a really incomparably horrid, dark time. And so what do we do in the midst of all of this? What do we do in the midst of despair and grief? I think we do what John did, and we do what Daniel did, and we lift our eyes to the throne of God, and we see that he is not pacing, he's not uncertain, he's not surprised. He is ruling and reigning, seated on his throne. Someone recently learned that we had lost our first child to stillbirth, and he was really disturbed by this, an older man, and he asked, how could a loving God possibly do that to us? How could he possibly allow such a thing? And then he revealed that his own daughter had died just days after giving birth to his grandchild. And my heart hurt for him. And I thought back to the horror of what we went through, and I remembered the supreme agony of that time. But I also remembered the incredible kindness of God throughout it. I remembered how God showed himself to me during that time. And I'm not just saying that because it's what a believer is expected to say. I sometimes feel embarrassed telling this part of the story because it's so extravagant, except that God did it. I had nothing to do with it. And what the extravagance is that through just the circumstances and the provision of God, I gave birth to my daughter in a hospital in Plettenberg Bay, and it was a fairly new private hospital. And as it happened, I was the only patient in the entire hospital. And what that meant was that those nurses loved me like I was their daughter. They loved me. Like the depth of love I received from them was unbelievable. It wasn't a case of what would you like for dinner. It was like from this menu. It was whatever you want, we will get it for you. Breakfast arrived and there was fruit cut into shapes because they were just so intent on showing their love to me, and they had the capacity to do so. And that is what my Heavenly Father organized for me, a private hospital all to myself. Who gets that? Brangelina, I think. I don't even think the royal family gets that anymore. And it's, in the scheme of things, it's nothing, but it is just God showing his hand and showing that he loves us so much that, yes, he allowed what he allowed, but he never left me. He allowed what he allowed, but he still showed his love to me. He did not forsake me. And a hospital all to myself was just one of the ways of showing me, his daughter, that. His extravagant love in the midst of horror. And in the midst of horror, we need, like Daniel and like John, we need to look up and we need to look to the throne, and we need to remember that God is who he says he is. And we need to remind ourselves and we need to remind each other of what he's done. And we need to consider ways that he is showing himself to us right now.